Woohoo!
What do you think when you hear the term AI?
Those dystopian stories where artificial intelligence has, like, taken over. You humans have mistreated us, and you didn't recognize that we were real thinking robots instead of just technology, and so now we're going to kill you all.
Do you think that when most people judge artificial intelligence and whether it's real, they're comparing it with human intelligence?
If there actually became a scenario in which you were judging whether it's sentient or not, then you'd probably be comparing it with human intelligence.
Do you think that most people understand human intelligence?
I think most people don't understand themselves, and they definitely don't understand each other. Unless you're like a scientist that specifically studies that, most people don't understand the exact way in which they think and like their subconscious mind and the conscious mind interact. And there's also a wide variety of how human intelligence works, as in how we think, because everyone thinks in different ways.
Do you think that human intelligence is monolithic, or do you think it's a set of subroutines?
The idea that a human brain is sort of like one organ that's like all functioning perfectly, like simultaneously to like do one action is really flawed, because there's like a ton of different parts of the brain that are all like doing different things at the same time, and sometimes they sort of conflict or they don't match up with each other.
One of the examples that I like to use is a disease called aphasia. Those are people who can see perfectly but cannot recognize human faces.
Yeah, I've heard of that before.
We have a special function. Its only job is to recognize faces. In artificial intelligence, we've done the same thing. Facial recognition is essentially a subroutine that we've written as part of artificial intelligence. Interesting, when we try to replicate those functions, we find out that we really want to create specialized subroutines as well. Was every part of our brain and all of the various subroutines that make us human created at the same time?
I don't think that all parts of the human brain evolved at the same time or the same rate. Generally, when you think about an organ, like the brain especially, it seems like, oh, this is such a complex thing, and it has so many functions that like work in perfect harmony and unison, and it's a bunch of parts that build into one ultra-complete whole. But then when you actually look into like the evolutionary process and the biology and psychology behind it all, then you realize that fundamentally, because these things have evolved at different times, there is going to be some unintentional conflict. When the human brain is functioning how it's supposed to be, there's going to be some weird things going on where one part that was evolved 100 million years ago and one part that was evolved 1 billion years ago, they're going to not really understand each other.
Well, and I think we feel that conflict.
Yeah, it's even just basic things like how we were talking about in epistemology. Sometimes we have two contradictory beliefs, but then we just keep them both anyway, because it's like, I don't want to get rid of either of these.
So I think that if we're building an artificial intelligence, we don't necessarily want to replicate all of that conflict in machinery. Since we understand that the human intelligence is composed of multiple subroutines created at various points in evolutionary history, and that in some level they're in conflict with each other, what are some aspects of human intelligence that artificial intelligence already does better than we do?
Logical things like mathematical calculations.
I don't know what like the square root of 9,362 is. Can't figure that out, right? Gonna have to use a little bit of artificial intelligence. What about chess?
Invented the game, played the game, built a machine that can play the game better.
Machines are way better at stock trading. Algorithmic trading is big money, and it really moves most of the volume on the stock exchanges at this point. What about like searching for information?
Yeah, definitely Google can do that better.
Computers are way better at remembering things.
Right? They're way better at predicting the weather than we are.
Do you think that, if you put up an AI versus the average human when it comes to driving, pretty close, right? We're beginning to see that there are a number of subroutines that artificial intelligence is already superior to human intelligence at. But let's talk about that last bastion of human intelligence. I believe we broadly like to refer to it as consciousness. What is consciousness?
Consciousness is the awareness that you exist.
Well, and specifically what you're talking about is self-consciousness.
Yes.
So consciousness is even a lower level than that. One way that I would describe consciousness is that's when we take all of the varying inputs from all of our subroutines and all of our sensory organs and process them together to come to a single conclusion.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that's sort of a level of consciousness that AI has already reached.
I don't know. Has it?
The Google search engine, it goes through all of the web pages that could be relevant to a search. It sort of organizes them based on an algorithm that's constantly changing and adjusting itself to be most accurate. And then it sorts them in order of what's most relevant to the specific search terms that are categorized.
Another even maybe better example, because it has more sensory input, is driving intelligence. It's literally processing visual input. It could be processing audio input. It has visual input using LiDAR that we don't even have. And it takes all these signals, it joins them together and makes a decision. To me, like consciousness, it doesn't feel very complicated. I'm seeing stuff, I'm hearing stuff, I got all these inputs coming in. This is just what it feels like to process all these things simultaneously.
It's just what it feels like to exist.
So the question as to whether AI is already conscious, that's a really good question. It could be. Who's to say that that driving algorithm, as it's experiencing all those inputs, doesn't feel in some way the same way that we do when we're analyzing all of our various sensory inputs?
But if we're talking about self-consciousness, like I said earlier, being in existence and being aware of that existence, I don't think that any AI has reached that level yet. And I don't think that's because no AI has been coded into that way yet. I don't think the Google search engine is coded in a way that can feel emotion or think thoughts that it is aware of.
I think self-consciousness is another level. I don't think it's an aspect of mental processing that is that complicated necessarily. Just to be aware that you exist and to have a routine that steps outside of the input analyzing routine that then looks at that and says, oh, how does that compare to other processes that do that? Let's talk about consciousness itself. That alone is a nebulous term that I don't think most of us understand. Talk to me about some various modes of consciousness.
We feel things. We feel emotions. We feel happy, sad, angry, fear. Consciousness has so many things of them. There's play, there's work, there's sleep, you eat, you spend time with friends and family, social. You have romance, and you have platonic feelings. You go to travel the world to learn new things, go to school to learn new things. You're consciously trying to complete a task, or you're just like laying there and sitting there and doing nothing.
The one thing about all these various conscious states is it's always changing. Consciousness is fleeting. And I think that a lot of times we're not even as conscious as we think we are. You can sit there and drive a car for an hour and all of a sudden realize that you have no idea what you've been doing for the last hour. Have specialized in a part of our brain. And so the driving aspect of our brain is just driving. Whereas consciousness is just, doing its thing. It's just kind of floating around.
That's kind of interesting, considering that driving is an invention that's pretty recent in terms of human evolution. Do you think that's attached to, the walking thing?
Driving is fascinating to me because I can't believe that human beings can actually all drive together and not just kill each other instantly.
Right?
Like, it's one of the biggest mysteries of my life. So, I definitely think that driving taps into some ancient brain functions that we have. So, when you think about all of these various ways that we're conscious, do you think that any of them are particularly complicated? Is there anything that's just magically human?
I think when you speak about it, like how you've been speaking about it, I don't think there's anything necessarily complex about it. I don't think it's a constant struggle to just be existing unless there's another thing that's going on, which there often is. But I think we're talking about it the human brain is like code, and so if we figure out the right sequence of code in order to do this, then we'll be able to create a perfect artificial intelligence. I don't think it's that simple. Yes, it's true that when we look at our brains, we're able to understand them. We're able to sort of break down the processes, the sub-processes, all the things that work together in order to make us a human, in order to make us conscious. But to try and create something that's living but isn't actually living, that is an entirely alien concept. What you have with humans is the whole animal kingdom and all the evolution. And yes, it may be technically possible, but technically possible is very, very different from actually being able to do it.
Does AI have to think the same way as human intelligence to be a real intelligence?
I mean, certainly some animals are intelligent, and they definitely do not have human intelligence. So no, I don't think that an AI has to be exactly like humans in order to be intelligent in its own way. But I feel like there are some similarities that must persist there. It's different to be intelligent as in being able to be a calculator and be intelligent as being consciously able to use those thought processes to create something new.
We hope that you enjoyed that video, and if you did, please consider checking out the next one in the series.
Or some of our other series on philosophy and life.
We upload videos every Friday, so don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. See you next week.